County Capital Bikeshare Program webpage. Microsoft Teams also offers a live captioning service, and you can find that by clicking the three dots at the top of your screen and choosing Turn on Live Captions. Once the presentation is completed, we'll have a question and answer portion, and during that time, anyone can ask questions verbally. We have disabled the chat feature for this presentation, so we won't be taking written questions at this time, but please do hold your questions until the end of the presentation. If you're calling into the meeting on your phone, we'll have additional instructions on how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. And we also encourage everyone to submit your comments on today's presentation using the online feedback form on the county's Capital Bikeshare webpage. And again, we'll have instructions on how to do that at the end of the presentation. So before we begin, it looks like Supervisor Stork is joining us tonight. So I would like to introduce him and turn to him for any opening remarks.
Thank you, Hannah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Well, first I want to welcome everybody, welcome you. Thank you all for putting this together. This is part of where the future is how do we get people that last mile to a mass transit system? And we'll be talking about one of the ways to do that, which is the whole Capital Bikeshare program, which is now not only in the district and in Alexandria and Arlington and in the Tysons area, but we're looking at that for this area as well. So the core of the presentation tonight, in my mind, is for the community just to take a look at this, see how it's working in other places, see how we all and you all believe it can best work in Mount Vernon, provide that feedback, and then I'm looking forward to Hannah and Zach and the others really taking that information, that feedback, and coming back with a proposal that's probably more targeted at what we all kind of collectively think is the best way to approach this. And then, of course, there'll be opportunities for the Mount Vernon Council Civic Association and our office and others to weigh in on that final proposal and hopefully put something together that will be very effective long-term for our community. So again, my thanks in putting this together. Look forward to listening myself, and then at the end, listen to your questions and comments as well. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Stork, and thank you for joining us tonight. I would also like to introduce Peyton Smith from Supervisor Stork's office. And also joining us tonight is my colleague, Zach Desjardins, the Capital Bikeshare Program Manager for Fairfax County Department of Transportation. So to start off, I'd like to explain a little bit about how Capital Bikeshare works for those who might not be as familiar with the system. So Capital Bikeshare is a bicycle transit service that allows users to rent a bike and ride to any one of our 700 plus stations in the DC metro area. And it's worth mentioning that Capital Bikeshare is a docked bike share station, meaning that most users take trips from one station to another. And if a user does leave one of the classic red bikes outside of a dock, they will be charged. So that's definitely a deterrent to leaving a bike outside of a docking station. One important function of Capital Bikeshare in Fairfax County, as Supervisor Stork mentioned, is as a first and last mile connection to and from metro stations, which just offers people who might live or work within a mile of a metro station a faster, more efficient way to get to and from that metro station than walking or driving a car. So in terms of ridership fees, you have the option to join Capital Bikeshare for $95 a year, and that will give you unlimited 45-minute rides on the classic red bikes. And if you'd rather not commit to a membership, you can also pay $1 to unlock a bike and then 5 cents for every minute of your ride after that. And Capital Bikeshare also has a program that offers all low-income residents unlimited 60-minute rides on all of the bikes, including e-bikes. And you can find more information about that program on the Capital Bikeshare website. And I'd also like to note that the Capital Bikeshare bikes are really designed with safety in mind. They really aren't designed to go very fast. Their lights are always on when they're in use, and they're bright red, which makes them very visible. And this is just an example of one of our stations in Tyson's, near the Greensboro Metro. And each station has a point of sale terminal, which is that tower you see in the middle there. And it will have anywhere between 12 and 19 docks for the bicycles. So before we get into our proposed stations for tonight, I'd also like to give a little bit of insight into how we selected the locations for these stations that we're proposing. So there's already a large capital bike share network in the city of Alexandria. So we're hoping to provide connections to and from those stations for residents in the Mount Vernon district. And we're also planning to expand into Franconia district. So again, we're hoping to provide those connections via bike share between Mount Vernon and Franconia districts in the near future. And again, by expanding to and around the Huntington Metro, the goal is just to provide those first and last mile connections to and from the metro station. And these stations will also provide access via bike share from the Mount Vernon Trail to their namesake attractions such as Mount Vernon Estate and Fort Hunt Park. Also, before we propose a station location, it has to meet technical requirements such as solar access and a number of different safety requirements. And so any proposed station location also needs to meet programmatic requirements such as residential density, connection to various destinations, and an ability to attract high enough ridership and revenue. And so here's a list of our proposed stations in Mount Vernon District. The first 4 stations in that list will be funded by the countywide Transportation Alternatives Program, sometimes called the TAP program, which is a federal grant. And these 4 stations would likely be installed in late 2024 or early 2025. And then the other stations on that list will be funded by an earmark from our senators and will likely be installed in 2025 or later. And so here's a map of our proposed stations in and around the Huntington Metro Station. And that black line you're seeing there just shows the approximate boundary between Franconia and Mount Vernon districts. And the 3 stations to the west of that boundary were presented at a public meeting in December 2022. And so for each of these proposed stations, we'll show an aerial view of the station as well as a photo on the ground with a footprint of the station's boundaries. And so here's an aerial view of our first station on the list, which is Huntington Avenue and Metro View Parkway. The station is near an apartment complex, the Parker, and in installing the station, we would do repurposing 2 street parking spaces. And here's a view of where that station would be at street level. So our next proposed station is Huntington Avenue and Farrington Avenue. And this location will serve the residents of an adjacent affordable housing complex as well as the nearby single-family homes. And the site is located in an existing no parking area. And we've measured and it will be far enough away from people's driveways. So we don't expect any issues with people backing out of their driveways and into the station. Our next station is Huntington Avenue and Old Richmond Highway. And this will serve residents in the Riverside apartment complex nearby. And the station will also be repurposing 2 parking spaces. We are also proposing a station at Huntington Metro North near the parking bay. We did want to get closer to the station entrance, but we were limited in doing that based on the solar access there. This station will be in an existing no parking zone on WMATA's property, and we're hoping to install this and the 3 stations I listed previously in late 2024 or early 2025. Another station we have proposed is Huntington Metro South, and this location is in the Mount Vernon district, but it would primarily serve Franconia district residents because it's pretty much right on the border of the 2 districts. And this one would likely be installed in 2025 or later. This one would be located near that station entrance on the south side there. Next, we have Bellevue Boulevard and 10th Street. This one is located in VDOTs, or the public right of way, in an existing no parking zone. So we would not be repurposing any parking for the station. We're also proposing a station at Bellevue Boulevard and 13th Street, and this would provide bike share access to the adjacent residences and the nearby shopping center. Next, we have Wakefield Drive and Potomac Avenue. And installing the station, we would be repurposing 2 on-street parking spaces on Potomac Avenue. And this is what that station would look like on the ground. So the National Park Service has also approved up to 4 locations along the Mount Vernon Trail. FCDOT still needs to work out a legal agreement with the National Park Service to move forward with these stations. But Arlington County has already gone through the same process a few years ago when they installed some stations on NPS land, including Gravelly Point, a station at the Iwo Jima Memorial, as well as a station at Roosevelt Island. All 4 of these stations would give visitors and nearby residents access to various sites along the Mount Vernon Trail by Bikeshare. And just for some context, riding from our proposed station at Fort Hunt Park to the station at Mount Vernon Estate would only take about 15 minutes on the Mount Vernon Trail. So our first of these stations would be located at Mount Vernon Trail in Bellhaven Park. And installing the station would require us to repurpose 5 of the 204 spaces across 3 parking lots. So there's still quite a bit of parking there, even in repurposing those 5. We also have a station proposed at the Mount Vernon Trail and Bellhaven Park. And then we have another proposed station at Fort Hunt Park, and that will be located adjacent to Picnic Shelter A, and that one is also accessible via the Mount Vernon Trail. And here's a view of that station at street level. Here is Mount Vernon Trail and Riverside Park, and this would require us to repurpose 2 to 3 out of the 60 spaces at that park. And again, here's a view of that station at street level. So very close to the trail and also very close to the water, which is really nice. We're also very excited that we have the opportunity to provide a connection via Bikeshare to one of Fairfax County's most notable historic attractions, Mount Vernon Estate. And so this station would repurpose 4 to 5 of the angled parking spaces, but there are over 500 spots across the entire Mount Vernon Estate. So we don't see the loss of these spots creating major issues with parking demand. So we're getting close to the end of this presentation, but I'm first going to talk a little bit about the new electric bikes that are now part of the Capital Bike Share system. So since 2020, we've had e-bikes provided by our contractor as a part of our system. If you're familiar with Capital Bike Share, they're the smaller black bikes that you may have seen. But more recently, we've introduced a newer model of e-bike, which are the slightly larger gray bikes that you also may have seen around the region. They're great for tackling some of the really big hills that we have in the county and are a wonderful option for someone who might not be ready to purchase their own e-bike at this point. And with our TAP grant, we plan to acquire more of those newer e-bikes for the county, which is great because so far they've proven to be very popular. And additionally, buying our own e-bikes is important because it ensures that we will continue to have e-bikes in our system because our contractor eventually plans to phase out the black e-bikes that they've been providing for the past few years. One other unique feature of these e-bikes is that they can be locked to a public bike rack instead of a docking station anywhere within a quarter mile of a station. So users aren't as limited to just going from station to station. However, most trips made in the county are still starting or ending at a dock station. And as I mentioned, we have established service areas for the e-bikes where you're able to lock a bike to a rack, as this person's doing in the photo here. And those are just some examples of the e-bike service areas in Reston and Tysons. And these are a couple of photos of the new e-bikes. They're very easy to ride, very comfortable, even if you don't have much experience riding an e-bike. And that just about concludes tonight's presentation. In terms of next steps, we will continue to work with VDOT through the federal grant process to obtain permits for these stations. And then for the stations near the Huntington Metro, we're hoping to install those late this year or early 2025. And then aiming for 2025 or later installation for the other stations. And our next steps will be impacted by the feedback we receive on each of these proposed stations. So we do really value and encourage everyone to submit feedback. And the next slide will outline exactly how to do that. And so the feedback will be compiled and then shared with Supervisor Stork to determine next steps for each proposed location. And we'll be accepting feedback for the next 2 weeks. During that time, you can submit feedback by email, phone, mail, or through the feedback form on the county's Bikeshare webpage. And all of that information is right up here on the screen. So please take the time to copy that down if you plan to submit feedback on this proposal. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and open up the meeting for questions and comments. You can see the instructions on how to do that here, but to ask a question, you'll want to raise your virtual hand, which is located at the top of the screen next to the 3 dots. And Zach, the moderator, will enable your microphone and call on you to ask your question. And when you're finished with your question, we just ask that you please lower your hand. And when you're called on, just unmute your microphone and ask your question or provide your comment. And once you're done, again, just be sure to mute yourself. If you're calling into the meeting on your phone, you can press *5 to raise your hand. And then when you're called on, just press *6 to unmute yourself. And then *6 again to mute yourself and *5 to lower your hand once you've asked your question.
Thank you, Anna. So we're going to start with the person whose phone number ends in 4804. You've had your hand up. So I've enabled your mic. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Hicks, and I live on Potomac Avenue. And Dan Stork said that the reason for the bike share was to be closer to transportation. Potomac Avenue is where the bus comes every day. And not only that, but if I come in after 4:30, there is no street side parking or parking in my parking lot. There is a problem. We can't be assigned a parking space because there are more occupants in Bellevue than there are parking spaces. So for me, that creates a tremendous problem. And having 3 bike shares on 3 different blocks that are closest to each other, where the bus is accessible, going to Huntington and moving forward, to me seems like it's a bit of an overkill. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we're going to move to Diane Fraser. I'm going to unmute yourself or unmute you, and you can go ahead and speak once you've done unmuting yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I guess I didn't do the *6 very well. So at the Mount Vernon Transportation Committee meeting for the Mount Vernon Council, we recently talked about this topic, and I just want to express some fairly strong concerns over not so much the fact that the bikes might be used on the Mount Vernon Trail. Obviously, that is exactly what the Mount Vernon Trail is for, but it also has lots of bikers and it's very busy. So what is, and I'd appreciate an answer tonight if possible, what is the plan for picking up these bicycles when they're dumped? because they're, I work in the city. I've certainly seen these in Old Town. The bikes are like, strewn all over the place, and there's just not enough room on that bike path. It'll be very dangerous if there's not some kind of daily pickup or more even of these bicycles. And I would really like to know what your plan is for picking them up, charging them, or getting them out of the way. Thank you, especially on the weekends.
Do you want me to take that one, Hannah?
Yeah, you can start and I can add to it if necessary.
Okay. Yeah, so I really appreciate your concerns. Obviously, since it's a public asset, we're very concerned about that as well, because it is something that we obviously want people to return back to the dock. If so, since it's a docked system, most of the bikes will actually have to end up back in the dock. So if users aren't leaving them around, they'll be charged for that. We do have the black and gray electric bikes that do allow you to park outside a dock. And those have GPS. So if those are, left in places they shouldn't be, we can pretty easily track those down. We did just have an issue with some of those bikes were ridden to the Great Falls Park, and the National Park Service let me know, and they were able to get them pretty quickly. So it is something we do watch out for, and try to take care of it as quickly as we can. We have a contractor who
We're
take care
depending
of
on
it.
the Park Service to notify you of that sort of thing. I just don't have much hope that you're going to be able to get them out of the way in a quick manner. And no offense to the Park Service, but their resources are super strapped along that parkway. Certainly the police are super strapped along that parkway. We keep hearing about that as well in our transportation committee meetings. So I would like to know, please, as a follow-on to this, and I'll be happy to submit a public comment. I'd like to know what the pickup schedule is going to be, and I'd like to encourage your company to make it a very consistent pickup schedule for any discarded bikes. Thank you.
The pickup schedule we use is ad hoc.
So it's ad hoc. So
Yeah, so when we get a report, we
so
will go out,
Representative
we'll
Stewart,
contact
I
our,
guess my answer to that is we really need some kind of a different. The bike path is so busy and so full of people, and it, especially on the weekends, this is, having these strewn throughout and dropped off, it's just going to be a real hazard for folks. I'm concerned about the safety. Thank you.
I did one follow-up. I did want to add that both Arlington and Alexandria have stations on the Mount Vernon Trail. One of the really popular ones is Gravelly Point in Arlington. And as far I haven't heard too many issues from them, but that's something we can talk to those jurisdictions program managers about to see how they've remedied issues with maybe people leaving bikes in places and whether or not that's been an issue.
That would be really great. I think that would be a real good benchmark. I have driven past the path in that general vicinity on my way to work, crossing over to the 14th Street Bridge, and I have seen bikes on the side. I don't know how much busier or less busy it is there compared to where we are, but I do believe that especially on the weekends, you are going to have people getting hurt if you don't pick them up when they get dropped off. Sorry to take up so much time, and I'll thank you for your attention.
That's okay. Thank you for bringing that up.
okay, next we're gonna move to Nancy Gleason. I'm gonna unmute your mic. You can go ahead and speak once you unmute yourself.
I'm not sure if you're trying to speak, but we still can't hear you. Yeah, we're still not hearing you. Make sure you hit that unmute button at the top of your screen.
Okay, so Nancy, we're going to move on. I will disable your mic and we'll come back to you. We're going to go to Ellen Young. Your mic's enabled, so please unmute yourself.
Yes, I am unmuted. So my name is Ellen Young. I'm president here at Bellevue Condominium, and I've got a bunch of comments to make about all of this. First, we are over 2 miles from the metro, so it doesn't make sense for bikes here to get to the metro. Also, we have the buses that do come through the entire complex, as was previously stated by Charlotte Hicks. Also, this is a residential neighborhood. We are not a gateway to the Mount Vernon Parkway. So we really don't appreciate parking spaces being taken up so that people from all over can come and go on the parkway. We already have people from Maryland and all over Fairfax County that show up in the summer and park their cars, and they're gone all day. And regarding our street parking, yes, it is VDOT property. However, when we were converted in 1980, Fairfax County allowed the developer, IDI International, to count street parking towards the minimum required parking because we don't have enough spaces in our parking lots. So to take away any of our parking is not only ridiculous, but in my mind, that is going back on a promise that was made to all of us. And so regarding the 3 spots, the Bellevue and 10th Street with the spot going on 10th Street, that is parking. It is not a no parking zone. So yes, you are taking our parking. Bellevue and 13th Street, which is actually right in front of a bike shop that does rentals. So I don't know if they know about this, but I will be informing them. I can't imagine they'll be too excited about that. And the third one also takes up our parking spaces, Wakefield and Potomac. One of the maps I saw showed those spaces actually on Bellevue Boulevard at Potomac. So I don't know which it is, but it's 3 or 4 parking spots, which is just unacceptable to us. We're fine with people who want to ride on, the bike trail, but we are not a parking lot for those people. People live here. This is residential area. So I'd like to know, why we weren't informed about this, why we weren't asked, and I will be talking to Dan Stork about this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. This is the public meeting in which we would inform you and anyone else who is interested in Capital Bikeshare. So this is the point of the meeting. So thank you again for your comments.
Yeah, just adding that these are all proposed stations. None of these have officially been approved. We're approved to install them, but like we can drop any of them at any time. Nothing is official yet. These are all proposed. So just wanted to make that clarification there.
Okay, next we're going to move on to Jeff Gauger.
Hi, my name's Jeff Gauger. I'm a resident of the Mount Vernon district. I'm a bike rider. I'm a bike commuter from Mount Vernon to DC, where I work. Just to address something a previous participants said, I don't see many Capital Bikeshare bikes strewn along the Mount Vernon Trail, and I'm a regular bike commuter. I think what they might be referring to is dockless bikes, as opposed to Capital Bikeshare bikes. I very rarely see a Bikeshare bike that's undocked, that's just lying on the side of the trail. But I see that other people are here from the Friends of the Mount Vernon Trail, so maybe they can address that issue. And then the other person who said they don't want the Bikeshare dock at the Bellevue condominiums, I'd suggest as an alternative, the Bellevue Shopping Center, where people want to go shopping, and that's just a great use of Bikeshare to go shopping. And then you don't have to have your own bike to do that. You can use the Bikeshare bike. But overall, I'm just very excited about this. We've been waiting since 2010 to get Bikeshare in this area. We've watched the success in DC and Arlington, and then it expanded to the city of Alexandria. And then it came to Fairfax County, but not anywhere near us, out west in Reston and Tysons. And we saw that it was used out there and it's been successful out there. This is an area that really could use it because we have the density along Route 1. We have a major employer at Fort Belvoir. So I really look forward to a rapid expansion of Bikeshare in this area because I think it's going to be a huge success. It's a way to get to Metro. It's a way to get to bus stops, and we're going to have the BRT coming in. It'll be a way to get to the BRT, and you don't have to own your own bike. You just get the membership, and you leave it at a dock, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about your bike getting stolen. You don't have to worry about maintaining your bike. It's just been a huge success in other jurisdictions, so I'm looking forward to it. I did have one question, which related to the e-bikes. In previous meetings, my understanding was the e-bikes could not leave the jurisdiction. Is that true here of these? Because it seems like people might want to bike, say, from Mount Vernon Estate up to Old Town. Would they be able to do that on an e-bike, or do they have to stick with the non-electric bikes? Thank you.
Yes, so they would be able to do that. Let me go back to this slide. The service areas are just in terms of where you're able to lock a bike up. You can't lock it anywhere outside of those service areas. So the city of Alexandria has its own service area. Mount Vernon District would have its own service area. So yes, you would be able to ride a bike to Old Town on the Mount Vernon Trail.
All right, thank you for your question. We're going to move on to Jason Zaragoza. I've unmuted you. You can go ahead and speak.
Still not hearing you. Just make sure you hit that unmute button at the top of your screen.
And for folks, if you don't get a question in tonight, if you submit feedback, you can absolutely ask your question that way, and we'll get back to you.
I'm still not hearing anything.
Okay, Jason, I'm gonna disable your mic and move on to someone else, and we'll come back to you. We're gonna next go to Paul Hertel. I've unmuted your mic. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Paul Hertel. I reside at Mount Vernon, close to Mount Vernon Estate. Kind of numerous issues. One is this is ostensibly a public-private partnership, but the private part is Alta Vista, which was then changed to Motivate and then bought by Lyft, and as a private enterprise, does not really divulge its information. And I would urge that, for instance, when one looks at it closely, one sees that there are tremendous deficits in this system that are borne by the communities. And there needs to be significant transparency in this action. Secondly, Bikeshare was mentioned as a tremendous success. It works in highly dense areas. So I am a little surprised that you're putting it along the Mount Vernon Parkway, especially since you made the point that there was supposed to be within a mile of a metro station. And Mount Vernon Parkway is a cultural heritage. It's a state park. And for instance, Fort Hunt, where you want to locate these bikes, they will stand very prominently. And especially at Fort Hunt, they need to be, if you want to pursue this, need to be pushed into a much less obvious location so they don't disturb the essence of Fort Hunt. But the big issue is everyone that talks about biking, I used to bicycle 35 miles a day on the Mount Vernon Trail myself, so I'm fairly familiar with it. One of the things, aspects about Bikeshare is when pointed out that these have tremendous deficit borne by the entire community, and the ridership is of limited demographics, they say, well, we subsidize the buses. Well, everyone can ride a bus, not everyone can ride a bike, especially and then when one goes to where Bikeshare elements were created, actually by a classmate of mine at Copenhagen University, it was in Copenhagen, which is a tremendously dense, very, very dense city. And when you go in Denmark and you go out into the outskirts like Mount Vernon, density in Mount Vernon, you don't see that stuff. You don't have any bike share whatsoever. What you do have is a very efficient bus system. And one of the things that's happened in the past 10 years is the bus systems in Fairfax, in Alexandria, and in Arlington has been degraded significantly. And even though I can bike ride, to suggest that a bike ride, for me to take a bike share from Mount Vernon Estate, which is right adjacent to where I reside, and then to ride to Hunting metro station is absurd. And not only that, but right now it takes literally over 2.5 hours for me to take public transportation from here to Tyson's Corner. And these are the bigger issues that need to be addressed. Bike share is a luxury, and I don't think we should be using the money on like that, especially not when the goal was to be within a mile of a metro station and then just to plunk them down on the George Washington Memorial Parkway, which is a cultural heritage. Now, many people don't really care about it, but I do. It is a significant cultural heritage. And so therefore, I would strongly urge that to take these things into consideration. Thank you very much.
They absolutely will. Thank you very much for your comments. We're going to move on to Mark Rogers. I've been muting you. You can go ahead and speak.
All right, let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So prefacing this, I'm very positive on much of the plan. I cycle more miles than I drive per year. So I do that anyway, and I actually like the access. I live in Huntington, and the question, so I have a question regarding the number of stations at Huntington Metro North. According to the information that was put out on January 4th, there are 3 stations located at or adjacent to the northern part of the metro. One is on Farrington, one's at Metroview Parkway, and one's actually in the metro station. And to me, that seems like overkill as far as the number of stations. That's all within, let's say, a block or 2 of each other. And it seems that it might be doing more than necessary, and I'm not sure what problems that would cause. So that is one question that's about that. Another question is, how much is the fee if someone doesn't redock a bike? I'm concerned about that. I think all of us have been burned by the various electric scooters and where they're left on our narrow sidewalks, and they block sidewalks regularly, and don't get picked up for weeks. So because you have an ad hoc pickup system, a question is, how much is the fee so that it would motivate people not to do so? And another one is it possible to put a large phone number for people to call if a bike is abandoned rather than having to search for a number and all that? Thank you for addressing those questions.
Yeah, so when we planned the four stations along Huntington Avenue, Richmond Highway and Huntington Avenue, Metroview Parkway, and Farrington and Huntington Avenue, we anticipated a lot of riders would go to and from the Huntington Metro, but we also anticipate people would ride to other stations nearby in the city of Alexandria. There's one near the new Wegmans in Alexandria, as well as other locations. So it seems a little bit close, but we anticipated we'd have other trips nearby. And I will add too, if we find that the stations are too close and they kind of take too many trips from each other, at a later date, we do have an option of moving the equipment around a little bit. But that would be after many years down the road. And your other question is about a phone number on the bike. If you just send us an email, DOT bicycle programs at fairfaxcounty.gov or bike Fairfax at fairfaxcounty.gov, we can take care of that. Since the bikes circulate among 8 jurisdictions, having 8 different phone numbers for different jurisdictions would be kind of complicated. But thank you for that thought.
Okay, just one thing. I was thinking more of a general number to call you directly rather than call a jurisdiction. Just a general number that would alert Capital Bikeshare as to the location.
Yeah, I'll ask around about that. Thank you for the suggestion. We're going to move on to Miles. I'm going to allow your microphone.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Roger Dodger. Thanks, friends. My name's Miles Keogh. I live in Bellevue near the shopping center, and I'm a real supporter of the expansion of the bike share system to our area. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about bike shares usefulness as a sort of a last mile for commuting kind of thing. And there's been a lot of discussion tonight about how the right place for bikes is on the Mount Vernon Trail. And I just want to voice that, bikes are used for a lot of different purposes. And, I'm not someone who's, some of the callers have been 35-mile-a-day bikers and stuff like that. That's not me. I just like seeing bikes around in the neighborhood. I think that they improve the quality of life. I think that they can be used for going shopping or going to a friend's house. They don't just belong on the Mount Vernon Trail. I like having them in our community. I feel like it produces a greater community feeling. I think people would use those bikes to improve commerce at the Bellevue Shopping Center, which can use the help. I think young people would use the bikes. I think older people and families would use the bikes. I don't just think it's for riding on the Mount Vernon Trail or for the last haul to Huntington Metro. Every afternoon I see the traffic back up on Fort Hunt, and I think to myself, what if a few of those folks were doing something else so that we weren't all stuck in our cars? So I'm a strong supporter of the bike share stations, not just the ones that would improve the sort of the broader multimodal transit system, but just to kind of make our village feel more like a village. I also just want to ask a question. The initial concentration of these bikes around the north side of Huntington, has there been any discussion about linking this to road safety improvements on Huntington Drive? I myself would be, as Huntington Drive is now, I'd be a little worried about riding a bicycle on that street without, some kinds of improvements. The Bellevue and Bellhaven areas have more, at least painted bike lanes, and the access to the south side of Huntington has different kinds of road access. That's not just North Kings Highway or Huntington Drive that would, I would have a hard time feeling comfortable on a bike on those, even on the sidewalks there. And I wonder if there's been any discussion about linking the expansion of Bikeshare, if it's going to be concentrated around the north side of the Huntington Metro, to improvements for cyclist safety and pedestrian safety and, road safety around that piece of Huntington Drive. Thank you.
You're muted,
Sorry
Zach.
about that. Thank you for the comment. I don't have anything to share about Huntington Drive right now, but duly noted. I'm sorry. So the person whose phone number ends in 9111. I'm going to unmute your mic. You'll have to hit *6 to speak. I can hear
Hello?
you. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. All right. I am also a Bellevue resident, have been for about 33 years now, which obviously puts me in not a younger group, but I do have really strong feelings about two things. First of all, I don't agree with the bike paths being at one place really is the problem. 13th Street, okay, there's quite adequate parking sort of along 13th. And Wakefield, there's a large parking lot near where it is, but 10th Street is not. 10th Street and Bellevue Boulevard is a really tightly parked area. And there are three of us with mobility issues living in the two buildings facing 10th Street. This is a real issue for us because although the bike share is going to be placed from Bellevue Boulevard down 10th to the beginning of the parking on 10th Street, that's fine, except for that this is a very busy two-way street. It's very much like Potomac Avenue. People go back and forth over to Bellhaven. And in addition to that, you have entrances from the Parkway of either end of my street. And this is a real problem. Also, there are trash trucks that go in and out. So these are real issues, and I don't really think you've thought all the way through that. I know you've done sunshine studies. Of course, you have to have solar energy, but consider the traffic. It's going to make a nightmare of what is already difficult. If people come in and park here in order to take a bike to go to another place, and that often happens in Bellevue anyway, going to the Parkway. I agree wholeheartedly with the gentleman who said that the GW Memorial Parkway is a cultural phenomenon, really. It's an amazingly quiet road in this area and a lovely bike path. I don't think it needs to have bicycle shares on it. I just don't. People who bike on the GW Parkway are going to be biking with their own bicycles. But the most important thing, and I'll make it quick, if you try and get from Bellevue over to the to the GW Parkway bike trail, you're taking your life in your hands, even walking across the parkway. Has anything been thought through for that? You'd have to put a light on the parkway in order to make it safe enough to do it, especially with the way the parkway now has turn lanes delineated by vertical posts. You're simply not, you don't have a place you can cross. So that's a very serious question, far beyond even the parking for me, is how are these individuals going to be able to safely travel across the parkway on a bicycle? Thank you very much. Take care.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. So the national, so addressing your last point about crossing the parkway, so that part is it's under the authority of the National Park Service, and obviously Fairfax County doesn't have much of a. I mean, it's not
No,
our
it doesn't.
property.
I know, and it
they
is
do
a
have-
national park.
Yes, yeah. They do have they have presented some plans in the fall and previously to make some upgrades to make it safer to cross. I don't believe they're funded yet, but it is something that you know I'm sure many people would like to see. So you'll be able to safely cross the parkway.
Well, then
Yeah,
consider
thank you.
my major issue to be parking, because it will be.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, next we're going to go to the phone number ending in 1076. You need to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello.
We can hear you well.
Okay, great. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you.
My name is Danette. I'm also a Bellevue resident, and I've been listening to maybe about 10 different comments before I wanted to chime in, and I am going to have to strongly, when I say strongly, I've been living here for 20 years, and I'm strongly agreeing with all my Bellevuians, especially I'm going to second everything our President Ellen said. This is going to be a nightmare. You cannot cross that parkway. Look at the records from Fire Department number 11. Right up here, they are up and down here daily, several times a day, with crashes over there, let alone the parking around here. It can't happen. And I just don't know what is the actual point of you all wanting to put them here. Everyone wants to keep putting stuff where things already are. This place is so pristine. It's so coveted living here. It is very special. The Dyke Marsh, I'm on it every day. I live 90-something% of my life on that trail. From here, mile 7 to mile 0 to Mount Vernon. I know every inch of it. And people on those, when they rent these bikes, I just sometimes have to giggle because have any of you done the last mile, 1 to 0? You can't get up it. No one is getting up there besides people who have their bikes, and a lot of people walk them up, which is fine. I do too. So I just think that it would ruin this area when we're trying to just keep it, besides any kind of business or money or whatever. That's the root of all evil, this place. We're trying to keep it the way it is. That's why the Dyke Marsh is protected by the Department of the Interior, so that it stays that way. It has to be protected. We're not the only creatures here on this planet, and it shows disrespect for everything else around. Trees are getting cut down. Everything is happening, and now just more people and more bikes. It's just overkill, as everyone else said. So this is the third, fourth, or fifth time that we're hearing the same thing. So if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it probably is. And I don't know how old you all are, or most of the people making these decisions or having these ideas, but like the previous lady who's lived here for 33 years, sometimes you're not thinking it all the way through. You're getting 1 through 8, but you're not going all the way to 10. So people have ideas. That's great. Appreciate young people having ideas, but sometimes heed the warnings of your elders. Sometimes it kind of helps. You know, you don't stay around here for 50, 60, 70 years and not learn anything. So this more is not necessarily good. Too much of anything is bad. So this balance that we have going here, that's the key to everything, is balance. So we cannot have 10th Street, 13th Street, Wakefield, the bike shop. The bike shop isn't going to like that. We'll say that again. And the residents around here, it's a residential area. Would you want someone parking one right outside of your house? You got to think about, put yourself in other people's shoes. People have lost their moral compass and empathy. So that's what the main thing is, what we're going to think about here. Let's think bigger and beyond and start getting back to what really matters. So don't ruin our home, because I don't think that anyone else would want that done to them. So let's use the golden rule, okay? Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope that that this is being recorded, whoever's going to listen to this, is really, really paying attention, because that's what it's coming down to. We have to care about each other and put yourself in other people's shoes and think what you would do. Don't just throw things out there nilly-willy. So to all my Bellevueians, thank you for your comments too, and I'm backing you. So thank you all. Do we just hang up?
Yeah, I'm gonna mute you. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we're next going to unmute the phone number ending in 9890. Please press *6 to speak.
Can everybody hear me?
We can
Hello?
hear you.
Okay, hi. How are you all doing? I just wanted to voice my concern. I'm young. I'm straight out of college. I have a place right off Farrington and Huntington. This proposed bike share is directly in front of where I live. It's already a skinny road, and it's going to impact my parking, not only for me, but everybody else on the block. I just wanted to call and voice that, because I already have trouble parking. And we had a little alcove where this could have been placed, but instead it's in the middle of the road, which I don't understand as well. Just wanted to voice that concern, because if this is put in place, then it really eliminates parking for me, my roommates, and all of our neighbors next door. So I understand that you want it close to Huntington Metro. Huntington Metro is directly across the street, and there's plenty of space to put bike share there. I just don't know why it has to be across the street on Huntington Ave in Farrington. I am local. I've lived in Waynewood my whole life, and I work at Mount Vernon Estate, so I have been here my whole life, and I don't understand the need for a lot of these locations. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Yep. Thank you for your comments. Just to address the Hannah, can you cycle back to the slide with the alcove for me on Farrington?
Yeah, on Farrington and Huntington Ave, there's a tiny alcove off the street where a car could fit there, and the bike share could fit in that spot. but instead it was
Yes.
proposed that it's out in the road, and that is a huge problem because that road only fits 2 cars side by side. So if that was there, that would only give us 1 car length to be able to move anywhere. And it's already a tight spot. The way the road is positioned, it's at an angle, so I already have trouble getting out, and I already have to back down because it's a dead end. So I already have to back out of there all the way down the road.
Yeah. So we could not fit lengthwise in that space. That's why it's not proposed for that location. And we didn't want to remove
Understand.
legal street parking on the north side of the street. So that's why we proposed it in the no parking zone.
Could I ask why it couldn't bend across the street where Huntington Metro actually is?
The solar access.
Like on the other side of Huntington Ave, so not on the Farrington side.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no solar access over there. The new building blocks it, so that's why I couldn't be
Understood.
over there.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me out.
Yep. Thank you for your comments. Next, we're going to go to Erica. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and speak.
I think you might still be muted, Erica. Still not hearing anything.
Okay, Erica, we're going to come back to you. Or you can send us an email for your question. Next, we're going to go to Jeff. I'm going to allow your microphone. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Great, thanks. Nice presentation. Appreciate you allowing the community feedback on this. 2 questions though. Could you go to the picture of the Huntington North Metro?
Sure. Oops. The street view?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
I'd recommend you guys do a visit there either in the morning or in the late or early evening, because I know that's a tight turn for cars trying to get into that lane. And that's also where a lot of the shuttle buses for the apartment buildings stage in order to pick up riders off the metro. So that might be a little bit of an awkward spot from the pickup perspective, but also folks trying to make the turn into those parking areas. The other observation, I think this is a great idea to, increase the opportunity for people to experience the Mount Vernon Trail and all that it has to offer. But the trail, arguably not in great condition. The trail north of Old Town is wider than what it is south. The southern end of the trail is also not really conforming to what the current design standards call for. So just a little concerned that with increasing access to it through the expansion of the Bikeshare program, we might not be ready for it, both from a safety perspective, as a couple folks have talked about, but also from a density perspective. Park Service plans that I think you referenced a few minutes ago, I mean, they're hoping 2027 at the earliest, but there really is no funding for the renovations to the parkway or the trail. And I understand they're going to do both. And part of that renovation would be widening the trail to meet current design standards. So again, in favor of the program, I think it's a great opportunity for people to experience the great aspects of what the Mount Vernon Trail has to offer, but I'm just not sure if we're ready for it, even if Capital Bikeshare goes in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback.
Next, we're going to go to Alexis. I'm going to allow your microphone now.
Looks like
Okay.
you might still be muted.
Um,
I think.
Yeah, I think you dropped off, Alexis. Feel free to send us an email or you can raise your hand again. Erica, I'm going to, oh, I'm sorry, Erica, if you unmute yourself, you can actually ask your question. Go ahead.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I figured it out on my phone. I had a question or comment. I was wondering whether it might be possible to consider putting in another, some bikes down in Lorton, maybe off of Gunston Road, to link up some of the attractions down there. I think it's a nice idea to put one in at Mount Vernon Estate, but there's several historic and cultural attractions down there in Lorton too, so it might be nice to link those up. And I think, you know, there's a pretty good bike path down there. It's less trafficy, like you can use the bike path, and there's Gunston Hall and a couple of parks. So I was just wondering if that might be a consideration for the bike share.
You're muted, Zach.
Trying to mute my small child conversation. Potentially in the future, that it's something we'd absolutely consider. For now, we want to try to build on the existing network that's closest to our neighboring jurisdictions, and close to our metros and close to our well-known, also very well-known trails and attractions. But that's something we'll definitely take into consideration going forward. Thank you for your comment. Next, we're going to move to Tyler Key. So I'm going to allow your mic. And all you have to do is hit unmute, and then you can ask your question or provide your comment.
I think you might still be muted. Still not hearing anything. Did you just want to move on, Zach? Oh, you're muted again. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I've been doing this too much today. If you've Tyler, we can't hear you. I'm going to disable your mic, and you can send us your question via the public input form, and we'll get back to you. That is it. I don't see any other hands up. Does anyone have any final questions?
If not seeing anything, we can go ahead and conclude the session here. Supervisor Stork, would you like to make any closing remarks?
I would just say I appreciate everybody being on, and the comments I think were excellent and clearly run the range of concerns, and I'm looking forward to how FCDOT addresses those as part of the additional work they're going to do. I think the number one concern I heard is how do we balance these future kind of growing needs with the existing present needs, and kind of shoehorn that into spaces that to some degree are not adequate already with parking and just proximity to the spaces or the places that are likely to need the bikes. So again, look forward to you all taking that information and bringing something back, and then of course we'll look forward to coming back to the community and sharing that and gathering any hopefully final comments that would ultimately identify how we best move forward. But the community can be sure that I will be bringing that back through their leadership, which is the Mount Vernon Council, civic associations, and others, to ensure that the communities are well aware of what's being proposed. And we of course will have our own Board of Supervisor hearings, I would expect as part of this process. So, and so we have many months to go. I recognize that, but I just wanted to make sure that folks that were on the call and part of the conversation know that there's many more steps to go, and look forward to you all sharing that information with us and moving forward with whatever this ultimate decision is. Recommendation from you all, decision ultimately by the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Hey, Hannah, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Supervisor Stork, and thank you again for joining us tonight. I would also just like to remind everyone to submit any comments or additional questions by email, phone, our website feedback form by February 2nd. Again, that information is right up on the screen. So this is going to conclude our meeting on Capital Bikeshare expansion in Mount Vernon District. A recording of the meeting will be available on the FCDOT Capital Bikeshare webpage in the next day or so. And thank you again for your participation and for joining us tonight. Have a great evening. Thank you.